The US president just announced an immediate and massive tax hike on European vehicles. The previously agreed upon 15% tariff cap is gone, replaced overnight by a steep 25% penalty on all cars and trucks coming across the Atlantic. This hits the core of Europe's manufacturing economy. The German auto industry operates on incredibly tight margins, and a sudden 25% surcharge at the American border makes their current export models financially unviable. The official explanation from the White House is straightforward. May claimed the European Union is actively violating the commitments they made in their mutually approved trade deal. But the legal authority for this move rests on a specific controversial mechanism. Experts point to the administration invoking Section 232. This diagram illustrates how the loophole works, allowing the executive branch to bypass standard trade laws by declaring an import a direct threat to national security. Invoking a defense provision for civilian passenger cars frames the tariff as a Trojan horse for a wider geopolitical agenda. It signals that commercial leverage is being treated as a weapon of statecraft. By classifying sedans as a security threat, the administration proves that any economic treaty can be unilaterally rewritten at will. The move shatters the assumption that trade deals provide long-term stability. The official timeline of this dispute centers on the European Parliament, which recently hit pause on ratifying a major transatlantic trade agreement. Lawmakers halted that ratification process because they were responding to prior aggressive posturing from the US, including a highly publicized push by the administration to purchase Greenland, an autonomous Danish territory. Behind this diplomatic friction is a specific economic goal. The America First doctrine aims to capture over $100 billion in global factory production and bring it stateside. By making imported vehicles prohibitively expensive, the administration is deliberately inflicting maximum financial pain on foreign automakers who rely on American consumers. The goal is to force companies to move factory production away from Europe. Rebuilding assembly lines on US soil drops the tariff to zero. This secures manufacturing operations, creating domestic jobs. It's a calculated political play ahead of midterm elections. The stated trade infractions serve as a smokescreen. The administration is holding European supply chains hostage to generate domestic political leverage in the US. At the same time, a separate geopolitical conflict is escalating in the Middle East, centered around the Strait of Hormuz and tensions with Iran. The U.S. requested active military support to keep these vital shipping lanes open, specifically asking European allies to conduct minesweeping operations. Europe refused to deploy their forces, leaving the U.S. military to operate largely alone. The diplomatic rift cracked wide open when German Chancellor Friedrich Merz openly criticized the American strategy, suggesting the U.S. was being humiliated by Iran. The perceived insult from Berlin triggered an immediate multi-front retaliation. Beyond the economic threats, the White House ordered the physical withdrawal of 5,000 U.S. troops from bases in Germany, like Spangdahlem. This order was rapidly formalized through the Department of Defense by Secretary Pete Hegseth, proving the troop reduction was not an empty bluff. The White House is now explicitly linking military protection to trade compliance, treating America's defense umbrella as a bargaining chip for its own economic interests. European leaders are not backing down. They are gathering to formalize their options for retaliatory strikes if the U.S. executes this two-track threat. Their first line of defense is a prepared list of targeted, reciprocal counter-tariffs aimed at standout American cultural and agricultural exports. A major target on this list is the U.S. bourbon industry, an export chosen to inflict pain on key American constituencies. They are also aiming at American agriculture, preparing trade blockades that would damage U.S. soybean farmers who rely heavily on European buyers. But their ultimate weapon is what officials call the trade bazooka. This diagram shows how it dwarfs standard tariffs. By restricting U.S. intellectual property rights and freezing foreign direct investment, the EU could inflict systemic damage on American corporations. Activating this arsenal would transform a localized tariff dispute into a full-scale economic war. The possibility of triggering the bazooka is currently tearing the EU apart internally, pitting hawkish member states against those most exposed to the fallout. This transatlantic crisis serves as a blueprint for a broader shift in American foreign policy. Other allies are watching with mounting alarm. South Korea's auto industry faces an identical threat, with the nation caught in the same crossfire. The parallels are striking. South Korea also has a stalled trade agreement in its National Assembly, and Seoul has similarly refused U.S. requests to deploy troops to the conflict with Iran. the White House has already issued a warning. This graph charts South Korean auto exports to the U.S., showing a projected $8 billion cliff drop if the 25% penalty is activated against Seoul. With these precedents, the distinction between a trade partner and a military hostage effectively vanishes. Cooperative trade has been replaced by competitive economic nationalism, where alliances are only as secure as the latest tariff agreement.